Life gives us riddles. Life gives us equations. Or rather, the cult or culture gives us riddles, gives us equations. And our job is to figure out how to solve the puzzle or transcend the equation. And so it works like this. We all start out with the one. The 10,000 cults, the 10,000 cultures in human history have all started with the one, with the possibility field. And out of the one, we refract language, we refract pieces. And out of the pieces, we build a system. Now, each system emphasizes a different part of the terrain. Some systems are very asymmetrical. For example, chauvinism as a system cuts the world into two and then emphasizes everything that's masculine. Outer world rather than inner world. Men rather than women. Accomplishment rather than felt experience, right? And just says, right? And all cults are self-referential. So if you say that the outer world is more important than the inner world, and that the person saying that is more important than the people who say differently, you've got a nice self-referential cult. And now everyone who adheres to that cult, in this case, the cult of materialism, right? Focus on the outer, focus on the outer. Ignore what you feel, ignore what you think, just get it done, get it done, get it done. Well, there's always benefits. There's always a benefit to a given approach. There's always a cost to a given approach. But if you have defined the value hierarchy, if you've slanted the value hierarchy to say that the cost is in the region of the psyche, in the region of the possibility field that has less value because we said so, right? That's ultimately what it gets down to as you start inquiring too deeply into the cult code of your parents. It ultimately just shut up, do it because I said so. Because in many cases, that's all they've got, right? I said so, and so it is, and it is because I said so. And you've got a wonderful loop. You don't have to gather any data. You don't have to analyze anything. You don't have to do comparable studies. You don't have to think. You just have to say something. And the easiest thing to say is the thing that's already been said, right? The absolute easiest thing to say as a parent is what your parents said to you. And the easiest thing for them to say is what their cult said to them. It was this way, this way. There's the story of the baking dish that's made its rounds in proving this or illustrating this point. But, basically several generations on, the fiance of a young woman is, watching her prepare the ham for Thanksgiving, and she's cutting off both ends of the ham and then preparing and putting it in the oven. And it's like, why are you doing that? And he said, my mother always did that, and so that's what we do. And one day he met the mother, and why are you cutting off the ends of your ham? I've never seen that done before. She said, well, my mother used to cut off the ends of her ham, and I figured she knew what she was doing, and so I cut off the ends of my ham. That's just what I do. And then, eventually he met the grandmother, and he said, grandmother, why do you cut off the ends of the ham? She said, well, I had a very small pot, and we couldn't afford a bigger pot, and so that was the best pot to cook ham in. And so I cut off the end so it would fit into the pot. And so it made sense for the grandmother. She was doing the best with what she had. But the self-referential copying, because that's what we do, and that's what we do without any data, right? That didn't make sense. But how many of the memes in our cult today are accepted in the unconscious thoughtlessness of the daughter and the mother, that's referencing a time that no longer exists? The ovens are bigger, baking dishes are cheaper, there's more money, there's no need to pare down the ham. That's our life, right? We're older now. We know how to swim. We no longer need to be terrified of water. And yet, if we drowned or came near to drowning, right? If we were traumatized as a 3-year-old when we were small, when we could not survive the waves, when we didn't know how to swim, how many of us are afraid of the water? That is no longer a threat. Are devastated at the idea of ending a relationship whose time has come because of the devastation of our first relationship loss. How many of us are still cutting off the ends of the ham, even though we've now got a big enough pot? And so, this phenomena of, losing, of being given these equations, right? Sometimes we don't know what to do about it, right? We're given the word of God, the word of the cult, the word of the parent, without context, right? It's not explained that we're doing this because, like, we're giving liquor to the kids because we can't get the kid to sleep. There's no babysitter. We're going to get a divorce if we don't have a date night. And putting the kid to sleep with liquor is the only thing that we can think of to hold this together in a scarcity framework, right? And it's probably good that the kid doesn't grow up in a single home with a bitter parent who can't provide. It's probably better to have a few brain cells be knocked off, to be drugged, and grow up in a family that holds together, right? That's our best calculation at the time, right? Doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean it's recommended. It's just what we're doing to get by. Well, the kid is given this equation, this puzzle. We used to put you to sleep with liquor so we could have sex from time to time, right? You used to scream. You didn't like to do this, so we had to do this. And then another part of the cult says that's childhood abuse right there. It's a formative area of the brain. That is abuse. You have an abusive parent. They didn't love you good enough. You were abused. Okay, I'm abused. I wasn't loved good enough. What does that mean? Well, it means you're going to have challenges. Your brain isn't going to develop as well. That's why you didn't get that promotion, right? Because your parents wanted to have sex and they gave you a shot or two so you'd be quiet, right? Narcissists, they weren't thinking about you at all, right? Or swaddling, they used to wrap children up. In fact, even before that, right? Too many children, no contraception, the church used to look the other way. In fact, in the eyes of the early Christian church, if the child had not been baptized yet in the 1st, 3rd, 4th century AD, it's not a real human being until it's been blessed and christened. So if you've got too many children or there's a little deformity, just kill it, right? Just drown it, kill it, whatever. It's not a real human being until it's been christened. And once it is a human being, all these kids running around, swaddle, right? Let's wrap a sheet around, so you can barely move and, sit there on the wall, don't get in the way. We've got work to do. That's abuse. That was whatever it was, right? So every cult refracts the one into language and then assembles the language in bits and pieces to create a puzzle, and then ascribes values to the pieces. That's good. That's bad. That's good. That's bad. That's good. That's bad. Very simple puzzles are broken into good and bad. More complex puzzles are broken into different piles. That's work. That's home. Don't bring work home. Don't bring home to work. That's work. That's home. Don't mix them. Another puzzle, another cult, mix them, right? But the meanings are ascribed by the cult. The meanings are given to you by the cult. Everyone, you look around, everyone nods their head. That's the way it is, right? And it just means that the majority has adopted a meme in a framework, in a paradigm in which the majority is always wrong. The majority always lags an excellent minority. Excellence, exceptional, bleeding edge, cutting edge, excellence, the best of the best, is a minority. As soon as the majority are doing it, it's average, right? There was a time when a 1 megabyte computer was excellent. It's bleeding edge. 1 megabyte. Oh, it's wonderful. And a 1 megabyte program, could you, get the program and do this and do that within 1 megabyte? It's an incredible accomplishment. That was bleeding edge. Not so much anymore, right? See, now it's the opposite. At first that was bleeding edge, then everyone else caught up. And now there's just a few old clunkers that have a 1 megabyte program with a 1 megabyte computer, right? Now that's the backwards minority. So wherever we are, wherever the majority is, it's lagging behind the minority, the bleeding edge, the excellence, the pioneers. By definition, wherever the majority is wrong relative to an intelligent minority. If you have two choices, you have a minority group here and you have a majority group here, it is absolutely guaranteed that the majority group is not exceptional, is not the bleeding edge. That's guaranteed. The only thing you have to figure out is with the minority group, are they exceptionally good or are they exceptionally bad relative to the majority? Because the majority is average. The minorities are unusually good or unusually bad relative to the majority. And that's just how a bell curve looks, right? Majority is here, and you have an exceptional minority, or what we call exceptional. We have the good minority, let's say, over here. We have the laggards, minority over here, the ones that haven't even caught up to the majority yet. Because evolution is an endless continuum. It never stops. Life just keeps having sex with itself. And as it has sex with itself, as this plant pollinates with this plant, as someone takes a branch from this tree and grafts it onto this tree and sees what happens, and you get nectarines, plums, peaches. Now you get nectarines, right? As life keeps interacting with life, creating synergies, most of those synergies are going to die out quickly. Most of those synergies have a short runway, have a short road before they hit a dead end. And more efficient, more intelligent patterns of life fill the space, right? If you've got one ice cream shop that doesn't hire good employees, who don't offer good service, who lets the ice cream melt, who doesn't have a nice sign, who charges $4 an ice cream scoop, and then you have another ice cream shop that charges $3 an ice cream scoop, hires good people, has more flavors, better taste. All the energy, life directs energy at the winners. And the winners are those that provide the most value for the least amount of energy, right? If you go to a car dealership and they punch you up a bit, take all of your money, and then give you a car that gets 1 mile to the gallon and further bankrupts you and starts braking immediately, people don't like that because it took too much energy for too little value. You can go to another dealership that gives more value with less hassle. You didn't get punched up, didn't take 3 hours. The price was already agreed online. It just was delivered to your house. It just appeared. I clicked buy with one click, right? Configure, made my $2,000 deposit, and the Tesla appeared. A safer car, a quieter car, a less expensive car to maintain, a faster car, a cooler car, right? HEPA filters for smog and forest fires, right? Less likely to turn over, better airbags, better for the environment, quieter, less vibration. Well, that's where the energy flows. That's what life likes to see. Life makes a lot of bets in a lot of different species, in a lot of different areas across the entire timescape. And life waits to see where the patterns of excellence emerge, which are always in a minority. A minority holds the patterns of excellence. But the minority gives them to the majority. And when the fear of change and when the fear of failure goes down enough in the majority to adopt the minority pattern, the majority benefits from the legwork, from the pioneering, from the courage, from the discipline of the minority. The majority is served by the minority, which is why intelligent, cults, intelligent cultures, intelligent majorities honor and protect their minorities. Because the cult is too dumb to know who the winners are and who the losers are. The cult is too dumb to know for certain which new technology, mentally, emotionally, physically, is going to become the next big thing, and which, like the majority of new technology, is going to peter out, is never going to get liftoff. Because most of the minority is a dead end, right? So the majority is mediocre, average. It's not the bleeding edge. You can guarantee that. So you know you need to look to the minority. You need to look to a small group of people who are doing something exceptionally better than average. You need to look out there, right? But most of those, more than 80% of them, are going to run out of money, are going to run out of passion, are going to run out of creativity before they transmit their technology to the majority. Some of the best technology is going to fail because the majority is hostile to change. The majority doesn't want to upset the apple cart, which is why clumsy, incompetent, sociopathic majorities routinely murder the minorities that could give them life. They murder them financially, they murder them physically, they murder them socially, right? You try and bring a bleeding edge technology into a party, most of them will be murdered at that party. They will be cut down, dismissed, patronized, turned away from, right? Let's talk about the latest gossip. Let's talk about the old thing. Did you hear about Caitlyn Jenner? Did you hear about this? Let's talk about that, right? Let's not talk about something the majority lacks the competence to understand, right? That takes skill to figure out, is this a crazy minority or is it a brilliant minority? The majority can't tell, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of thought to work with that. So let's just kill it. Let's just banish it. You're not welcome at this party if you want to talk about your new idea. We're not going to fund your new idea. Just finish your GED and go into something that was last generation's ticket out of suffering. Do something old and outdated after it's relevant because it worked for the last generation. That's the majority wisdom. You will be advised as a child to go backwards. And you will be praised for doing so. And you will be met with concern and skepticism about anything intelligent and new. Because it requires thought, and because 80% of that, in part because of the sociopathic protocol of the majority, I mean, some founders, some idea creators have brilliant ideas, but they don't enjoy being boycotted at parties. They don't enjoy being poor. They don't enjoy being looked at as if they're crazy. And so they give up on their brilliance. They give up on their intelligence precisely to placate, to appease the majority. They don't want to dislike them. And there's nothing incompetent majorities like more than shooting down change, than shooting down thought, than having to think things through rather than just fit in to what everyone else is doing and be a drone. So that's a puzzle, right? Pursue your brilliance and be slaughtered, or conform and be rewarded for mediocrity. What are you going to do with that riddle, right? These are riddles. You got pain on both sides. You know, in a dysfunctional cult, there is pain. Pain is a symptom of incompetence. The fact that we're in massive amounts of pain, loneliness, fear of pain and loneliness, misunderstanding, inefficiency, and failure is a symptom of massive systemic incompetence that is self-perpetuating, because all cults are, right? The granddaughter, when teaching her child how to bake, explains patiently and with every good intention in the world, now watch what we do here. This is what my grandmother taught me. We cut off the ends of the ham, and then we put it in the tray, and we put it in the oven, and that's how ham is made. No, you forgot to cut the bits of the ham off, right? Let's do it again, cut it off. Okay, now you've learned the system. You're now welcome to the cult. You're a card-carrying member. This is what we do because this is what we do, and that's why we do it, and this is who we are because we are what we do, and we do what we are. You're now a card-carrying member of the cult. Don't get too far off the path there, or people won't like you. You will be novel. You will be a source of confusion. You will upset people because you're... Where did you get that idea to go that way? Nobody else is going that way. They're going this way, right? And yet life has always disproportionately rewarded the intelligent minority. That's life's idea. Create massive amounts of freedom, massive amounts of possibility fields, knowing that if you just create enough people, there's bound to be one of them that knows what they're doing. It's bound to be. 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion. How many people is enough to make sure that one or two of them know what they're doing? Like if you're rolling dice and you want to get a lucky 7, how many dice do you want? Oh, 1 dice. Well, you can't get a lucky 7 with 1 dice. You know, there's no 7 on it, right? There's only 6, so you have to have 2. But what about 8 billion dice? If your life and you're rolling 8 billion dice, and then you start going through looking for a 7. 7 here, no, no, no. How many dice do you have to go through before one of them, or 2 of them combined, make a 7? Right? That's life's plan. Massive diversity, massive amounts of mutation, massive amounts of chaos, change, with absolute certainty that 1% of life is going to do just fine, and that it will show the way for all the rest that wants to do just fine, right? Because that's what we look to in leadership, in teaching, in learning, in growth. We look to success. We look for who's succeeding with the puzzle, right? If you know, and you're sitting in class, and you know that, Tom next door in the next desk gets 98% of math questions right, and Susie or Philip over on the right side gets 90% of them wrong, and you're looking at a difficult question, I don't know how to solve this math problem. Where is it? Where are you going to turn? Well, if you have half a brain, you're going to turn to the person who knows what they're doing. And this is how the minority disseminates to the majority, right? There was a time when someone had the first cell phone, right? And everyone thought it was a joke. It was big, it was expensive. Why would we waste time and money on that, right? It was dumb. We all knew it was dumb. And, but then other people had slightly smaller cell phones and cheaper cell phones and smaller and cheaper and smaller. And the one paved the way for the many. Now the many have cheap cell phones that save a lot of time, right? Let's see if that restaurant is open. Oh, they're closed on Sunday, right? That saved a lot of time, right? Saved a lot of energy. It's more efficient, right? Efficient memes that provide value or perceived value that consume very little energy, those catch on. The others are reserved for a small minority, right? That are interested in pioneering for its own sake, that want to push the envelope. And it's a paradox that the person who invented the first cell phone spent a lot of time, thought a lot, expended a tremendous amount of energy so that people that followed would save a lot of energy. So a small group of people expend tremendous amounts of energy, time, money, and natural resources to provide the probability that a large group of people will save even more time, money, and natural resources, right? Because if I had to drive to my restaurant in order to see, is it open, is it closed, then drive all the way back, well, that took 30 minutes. Put gas in the air, right? So the fact that some people spent a lot of time and energy means that many people, including me, for a long period of time, is saving lots of energy. Right? A small group of people provides enormous amounts of value efficiently for a large group of people. And certainly in free market capitalism, that is rewarded. But what do we do with the problems? Because that's all interesting. But what this, I wanted to make this video to look at some of the equations, some of the mathematical cultural equations that are given to us as young people, as citizens, as members of a cult, as members of a marriage. So let's say you have a spouse. You have a spouse who's fat, right? What you would call fat. Is it 100 pounds over the amount of weight that is optimal for the joints or optimal for a long life? Because that would obviously be the bullseye, right? To live a long, healthy, vital life where you enjoyed being in your body, you enjoyed having sex in your body, you enjoyed walking, you enjoyed running, you were able to do a variety of things, you had lots of energy, and you lived to a comfortable old age in good shape, right? So that would be kind of the bullseye, whatever that is. And if you didn't eat anything at all, if you were emaciated, you'd kind of maybe die earlier and, would be in pain, hunger pangs and all that. And if you go too far to the other side, maybe you put on 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, at some point where it's actually making your life harder to navigate because you're eating more than you're able to digest and process. Now, I'm too tired to have sex. Oh, I don't want to go for a walk. I'm tired because I'm carrying around 300 pounds, right? So what do you do, right? Because the cult also, although it's changing the cult also says that you shouldn't comment on people's weight. So what do you do if you're a spouse of someone who's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, but you shouldn't comment on their weight? That's a problem, isn't it? Do you divorce them because they can't go for walks? They can't get anything done? They're too tired to have sex? Do you divorce them, right? Well, that's awfully rude, right? You're supposed to be together for better or for worse. But we can't call this worse. This is freedom, right? The person has a right to die young in an uncomfortable state if that's who they are, right? So what do you do with that, right? What do you do with it? Do you get a divorce? Do you complain? Now, what if your partner is addicted to food, meaning they have a panic attack if they can't eat twice as much as their body digests? What do you do then? You don't want them to have a panic attack. You don't want to divorce them. You don't want them to die 15 years early. You don't want them to get depressed and unhealthy. Heart problems, vein. You don't want your medical bills as a couple to just keep going up astronomically. What do you do with it? It's a question. What do you do? Millions of people are living that right now. The person who's anxious, I feel so anxious. I need to eat something. Now I feel better. Has a problem, right? I don't want to be anxious, and I don't want to be fat, and I don't want to die young. It seems like I have to choose between the two, and the anxiety is certainly the more immediate thing. It's like really uncomfortable. I feel, thank you. The anxiety is certainly more uncomfortable, more immediate, more urgent. You're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die unless you do something about this feeling, about this pain. You're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. Oh, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. Let me eat some. Oh, goodness, I'm going to live, right? So, what do you do with that? I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be at a weight that makes it hard to live. And I don't want to be at an anxiety threshold that makes it hard to live. And I don't know what to do about this because that's the program that I was given by my mother, by my father, by the parent. She would get really anxious when this was happening, and she'd go out for ice cream, and she'd feel better. And it worked, right? Yeah, she got bigger and bigger, but she didn't hit us. She always encouraged us to have some ice cream as well, right? Here, have some more. Enjoy yourself. I felt supported. So we're given these equations by the cult, right? We're born into a family. There's a set of problems, right? If you go this way, it's bad. If you go this way, it's bad. And your parent went this way, right? They're not overtly anxious and they're fat. And now you're not overtly anxious and you're fat. As long as you keep getting fatter, then you won't be particularly anxious. Although, at some point, 300, 400, 500, 600 pounds, at some point you begin to become anxious about your anxiety managing protocol. At some point you start saying, gee, this isn't good. By the time I get to 700 pounds, I'm not going to be able to drive. Maybe already at 500 pounds I can't drive, right? Hard getting in the steering wheel. I can't fly in a plane. This is going to be a problem. Maybe you have a new source of anxiety. Now you have two anxieties. If I don't eat, I'm going to have a panic attack. And if I do eat, I've got something really big to worry about coming in the next year, coming tomorrow, right? Now I hear that I've got clogged arteries and this and that. They can't keep me alive indefinitely if I keep eating. But they don't have a solution for my anxiety. I'd love to hear it, right? You're doing all these operations. You've spent $150,000 doing this surgery, fat reduction, this, pills to thin my blood, this. You're doing a lot of work to try and help my body survive, me eating twice as much as my body can digest in energy. But you're not actually talking to me about why I'm anxious, or why my mother was anxious, or why her mother was anxious, or why we have so much anxiety in the cult. And you're not telling me what to do about it other than eat. You're just making a nice salary, responding to an ineffectual, to a costly coping mechanism that lots of people are doing. Lots of people are feeling that horrible feeling. And lots of people feel a little better when they eat a little bit too much, and then a little bit too much, and then a little bit too much. And lots of people feel a little bit better when they don't get up and go for a walk and sit and watch TV, and then watch another episode, because they don't want to think. They don't want to think about those things. And they feel a little better when they press next episode, next episode, next episode. Then they have to eat a little bit more, right? Because all that energy, right? Now let's go to bed, right? See, they're doing the same thing, right? So they're doing that, but nobody's talking about why we're anxious, or why it's not okay to talk about the anxiety. How you doing? I'm doing fine. Doing fine. Had 3 TV dinners. Watched 7 episodes of... I'm doing fine. Doing fine. Now this is an equation. You're given an anxiety of unknown origin, right? Because in the family system, if I said, I'm really, really anxious because your father rapes me from time to time when he's drunk, and I'm too afraid to leave because I have nowhere to go. And I'm too afraid to put up a fight because maybe he'll make me leave or he'll have an affair, and then I'll get venereal disease. right? Because he doesn't like using a condom. And I don't know what to do about it. That's why I'm anxious. But when I eat an ice cream cone, two things. One, he doesn't want to rape me as much if I'm fat. And two, I feel a little bit better. And I don't want to tell you about this because you might ask Dad about it and he might hit me or he might bring this up. And I don't want to tell anyone else about me because they'll judge and they'll gossip in a sociopathic cult framework where that's what you do when you discover someone's having a hard time. You joke and you gossip. You tell them to get it together and it's their fault and they don't know what to fucking do about it. So they just eat. And I feel ashamed that I don't know what to do about it. And so I just tell you to eat as well. I say, no, there's nothing wrong, dear. Just have another scoop of the ice cream cone. Maybe it'll be our little secret. Don't tell Dad. Right? These are equations, right? So I was given all this anxiety and put all this pretense, and we'd have this little bonding off at the ice cream shop. You see, and because nobody told me, Dad didn't say, this is why your mother is overeating, this is why your mother is doing this and this. Dad didn't explain it. Mom didn't explain it. In fact, and nobody looked. And nobody took me aside and said, you know, the reason your mom is getting fat statistically is because of these, 20% of this, 20% of that, 20% of that. So you've probably got some of this going on in your family. And if it's not going on in this generation, it may have been learned from several generations ago where it did go on and nobody talked about it then either. Well, what do you do with that in a cult that says that everything is going swimmingly? How's everything going? Swimmingly. Right? How do you piece together the mathematical framework of your traumatic coping mechanism in a cult that is traumatically illiterate? You don't, right? You get the messages, right? And it's communicated in the eyes. Maybe we could go for a walk instead, Mom. There's a panicked look, because the walk is going to bring her more into her body. The walk is going to make her feel. How's she going to escape those worrying thoughts on a walk, all alone, without any diversions? Only food, only TV is going to do that. So there's a look of panic, sheer panic. No, we've got to do this. And the kid doesn't know why. The kid just knows that Mom is terrified of being conscious, terrified of speaking the truth, terrified of being alone with herself. And the kid doesn't know why. But Mom is still alive after all, and Mom is Mom, the source of life. Maybe she knows what she's doing. Maybe I should start doing this, start eating this, start doing this, and not tell about my feelings either. So that when people say, how you doing? And I say, everything's fine. People say, oh, you're so cute. You're just like the other members of your cult. You're just like your family. You're just like, isn't that wonderful? A perfect replica of the cult. You see, you're now rewarded, for doing this. And you've got to wonder, what's going to happen? How am I going to die? How's Mom going to die? Because that's the look, that's the tone, that's the anxiety. I'm going to die if I don't do this. How's it going to happen? You can't think about that because thinking is often taboo. We don't talk about that in this house. Well, which house do we talk about it in? Because this is the house we live in. And how am I supposed to deal with a mathematical construct, with a cult construct, if it's not visible? You see, it plays out, this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, and then repeats. That's the pattern. That leads to that, that leads to that, that leads to that, that leads to that. That's the pattern. It goes round and round a few thousand times. Dad brings back a present he's worked really hard to buy or prepare. And he says to Mom, I got you a present. She says, oh, put it over there, because Mom is absent-minded and busy and doing this and that. She says, oh, this, and tunes him out, right? Well, that's not going to go down well. The whole reason he bought the present was he wanted to feel valuable. He wanted to feel important. He wanted to feel like he could provide meaningful value to his family. And after working for 6 months and doing all this, she's basically communicating, over there, dear, over there. Not now, dear, I'm doing this and this. And he feels like he's not good enough. All that 6 months of work, all that stuff, all that thought, all the things he sacrificed is not good enough. Well, he's got a problem, right? How's he going to be fucking good enough if he has a fucked up moronic wife who doesn't have the decency to look up, to appreciate, to do this and to value this, who's so self-absorbed? How's he going to do that? And he starts to feel hatred. You fucking bitch. You fucking bitch. You're never going to give me the significance I want to feel. I feel like a loser. I feel terrible. I feel small. I go to all this work to try and make you happy so that I can feel that I made it. And you say, over there, dear. That's it, right? Fine. I'm going to smash your TV. See if I care. And I'm not coming back. And don't expect me, da-da-da, right? Now we have the smash. So that's the first thing. You know, Dad wants to feel special, wants to be good enough. Because he doesn't feel special, because he doesn't feel good enough, why? He's still carrying trauma in childhood, right? All those feelings of insignificance and smallness, being left, being lied to, being hit. He's trying to overcome all those feelings. And his fantasy is that if he can get to this base here, where he delivers something and his wife says, oh, you're amazing, and how wonderful, and let's have sex this moment, I'm so lucky to be married to you, that is going to overcome all those feelings. So he saved up for 6 months and did this, and it's clear it's not going to work. Like 6 months down the drain, he's not getting any of that. He feels smaller than if he hadn't even come home, right? Because if he had an affair, then she'd be worried and waiting and, where are you, dear? Where are you, dear? If he had an affair, he'd feel, very important. I'm the center of the universe. You can't get to sleep because of me. You're anxious because of me, right? I'm the center of the universe. I matter, right? It's just that the cult says that I'm a shameless husband. I'm a this, I'm a that, right? So it's not quite the mattering I wanted. I wanted the mattering of you're the greatest husband in the world and this and that, the other. But that's not in the cards. Dumb dingbat doesn't have a clue, right? All the work I went to and all this stuff. So now we're heading up there. So now he's off, right? Well, now Mom's woken out of her self-absorption for a little bit. Oh, the TV, oh, this, oh, that, right? So she waits to make sure that this all fails, right? She could pay attention, but that would break the pattern, right? She has to wait until he's furious and leaving. Then the next bit of the drama, happens. Oh, please come home. No, I'm not. I'm with a nice blonde, down the bar. I'm not coming home. Oh, please come home. I didn't know it was the TV. And then, if she begs enough to make him feel important, then after some drinks, after this, after whatever, then maybe he'll come home. Maybe, right? Then he's going to sulk, and she's going to get his shoes and do this and that, the other, so that he's like, okay, fine, we'll give this another shot, right? Then he'll go back. So that's kind of the stasis. Then he'll go back to trying to be the good person again, right? And save up and do this, and he feels guilty about sleeping with her best friend and going off on the drinks and all. Feels guilty. He's also angry, and he's not sure if it's worth it, right? If I save up enough money and stuff. And then the pattern happens all over again. You see, nobody explains the rules, what's going on. Nobody gives a psychology lesson to the kid who's watching this. They just learn this is how you have a relationship. It's called innocence. You copy and internalize whatever the pattern is on the outside, and you instinctively look for it. Because you only know how to play the role. You have to decide as a kid, are you going to be the male or the female, the victim, the perpetrator, the what? But you know how to play both of those roles fairly well. You can pick which one. Maybe in one, you've got more of an alpha, more of an assertive type there, so you'll be the wife, the victim, or whatever, or maybe you'll play the other one. But this is never broken down, right? Dad doesn't say, I'm going to be saving up money to buy you a TV over the next 6 months because I want you to be wowed and amazed by me because I feel small because of this and this advice and these comments and all this childhood stuff. And then I feel small that my boss always overlooks, just says, fine, get out, right? Go do the next job. My boss doesn't make me feel anything, so I feel so small. I just feel small. I feel 2 fucking years old. And I'm hoping that if I am big enough to bring you this TV, that you're going to say, oh, honey, you are good enough. You are amazing. Oh, thank you. 'Cause I've never felt amazing my whole life, right? I mean, I just feel small. I feel worn down. I feel tired. I just want somebody to say that I'm amazing. And so I'm going to do all this for 6 fucking months so that you'll give me that feeling. And when you see a box coming in, that's your moment to stop everything, jump up, get out the champagne, tell the kids, look, your dad has brought us a wonderful gift. Hooray for your dad. He's an amazing person. Look at this. That's your job, right? To make me feel like I'm adequate. And if you don't do that, that's why I got married, right? I was hoping, you looked at me, that nice look you looked at me once, and I was, I thought you would make me feel that way for the rest of my life. And so you're not doing it. I'm working harder, right? I just took you on a first date and you made me feel that way. That cost $6.78. Then I brought you flowers and this, that was $20. And you made me feel that way. I bought you a dress. You made me feel that way. But now I've given you a house. I'm working 40 hours a week, plus another 10 hours a week in traffic, plus putting up with bullshit to give you this, and I don't feel that way anymore. And that was your job, to help me overcome these feelings. And you're not doing it. I'm doing more, and you're doing less. God damn it. And if I leave you with 2 kids, you're going to make me feel worse. Why'd you have to have kids, right? Why didn't you use birth control? Now if I leave, I'm going to feel like even smaller than I felt before I met you. Now you're going to turn me into a deadbeat dad. Meanwhile, I don't seem to have enough hours of the day, enough money to give you whatever it's going to take so that you say that I'm a wonderful person again. And I'm furious. I'm giving you all I've got. I don't know what else to do, right? I'm just copying Dad. He worked down the mine. He was a mechanic. You know, I'm just copying that. I don't know how that's supposed to turn into whatever it is that you want that's going to make you feel so amazing that I'll be a decent person again. I don't know what, I don't know how. I just know I'm working harder and paying more than I've ever paid and worked so that I can mend that feeling. And it's not working. I feel tireder. I feel angrier. I feel hurt. I feel insignificant. And it's not helping. You goddamn motherfucking bitch are not lifting the feeling I hired you to lift. That I've been carrying in my body since I was 6 years old. From the people who gave it to me, with the shame, with the dissociation, with the beating that they used to make me feel this way, that no one's doing anything about, that no one protected me from, no one's asking about. I'm carrying that alone, and I'm not happy. Right? Now, maybe the kid gets in the way. I want some of mom's attention, and mom makes the kid feel important. Well, that's enraging. I'm working 40 hours a week, and you make the kid feel important? And I feel like just a stranger in my own house? Something's wrong with that equation. I don't want the kid. Get that kid out of here, right? You used to make me feel important. It was medicine for all this work. God damn it. See, now I hate my kids because they're getting what I want and I'm not getting. Attention, value, priority. But that's not helping because now I feel like a schmuck because good people don't hate their kids, so I'm still not good enough. So now I hate my kids even more for making me feel inadequate. And they can get it, right? They know Dad resents me. They don't know why. What's the story? Your dad's doing all this because he loves you. Not true. I'm doing all this to try and mend this feeling. And when the kids helped, I'm pleased. And when the kids get in the way, I hate them. And then I hate them even more for making me judge myself for hating them. That's a little bit more accurate. And here's why, right? And this is this horrible feeling, right? When I was 6 years old, my father beat the shit out of me and did this, and then he left me in a helpless state. I cried, and no one came. And I've never felt so small. And then the next day, I felt small, and everyone else pretended like nothing had happened. And now I'm the bad guy for being upset about this. And now everyone is scared of me because I have rages about being left in this state. Those rages are not personal. Someone did this to me and left without giving me the key to get out of the cage of pain, misery, shame that I was put into. And then I was told how lucky I am. You see, in the tone, it doesn't matter if I say a word. In the look and in the tone, you see this face? The kid knows. The kid knows the energy in this face. It's not empathic. And when the adult says everything's fine, it's not. The kid is asked to go crazy, to bury this pattern. Just take a whole dump truck load of coal and just cover it all up. Just pretend it's not there. Because I said it's fine. And when I say it's fine, it's fine. What do? Everything's fine, apparently, because it's too dangerous to question. So now you've buried the pattern, because you may be killed if you don't bury the pattern, because your parent, your, quote, grown-up, lacks the competency to become conscious of what's going on. And even if they do, they can't stop the feeling. Okay, I've been traumatized. Okay, I've been hit. I was made to feel small. I've spent my whole life feeling small. I've spent $100,000 of therapy telling the therapist how small I feel and why I feel small when my wife does this and my wife. I've done all this stuff and I still feel small. And nobody wants to hear about it. And I'm tired of paying therapists who have nothing to do with my life to listen to my life. And I've had it. It's too much. Right? Something's going to pay. Something's going to break. I'm going to break something because I'm not going silently into this good night. And there doesn't seem to be a member of this cult that knows how to respond, that knows what to do here. And I'm tired of being told that it's all my fault and that I'm not good enough. You show me how to fix this thing, you goddamn hypocrite, right? Help me feel adequate. Once I feel adequate, I can be empathetic. Once the shame is lifted, of course you've got 3 kids. Of course you're busy. Take your time, dear, right? I'll give you this gift at a good time for you. I don't need to be the center of everything. Once the feeling is lifted, that is. But who's going to lift that feeling? Right? How is it going to be lifted? What's going to be done with it? Right? We're in a psychologically illiterate cult where there is no clear scientific protocol that says the best outcome is when this happens. The older generations just didn't talk about it. Jordan Peterson was talking with his dad, and he was asking him about his dad and his relationship. And Jordan was inviting him to kind of talk about the conflict and the stuff with his dad. And his dad didn't want to go there. He just said, let's just say we didn't get along. So that's as far as he would go toward what was probably a fair amount of verbal and physical abuse between son and dad, right? let's just say, that's a nice veneer over all that pain, over all that feeling. But where does it go when it's veneered? Where does the energy of all that conflict go? How do the feelings get passed on from one generation to another? We can't talk about that in a generation that is silent, that won't talk about the issues. Because we don't have to go insane. We don't have to bury it if our parents are comfortable owning where they are. I am a very narcissistic 6-year-old who's desperately trying to be good enough so that I won't be beaten. I'm stuck in that loop because traumatic memories don't end. I feel mild relief when somebody tells me I'm amazing, and so I'm trying to do anything I know how to orchestrate that, but it's not enough, and I don't know how to deal with it. And I was told that I'm not a real man if I have these feelings, and I feel deep shame for the amount of helplessness that I feel. And so I'm just trying to buy things that we don't really need, hoping that's going to fix that, and it's not. And I feel enraged because some part of me knows it's not, but I don't know what to do, so I feel even more helpless. And I'm angry at you for distracting your mother, and I'm angry at your mother for not knowing what to do. I don't know what to do. Someone hopefully knows what to do. And I'm furious that nobody does. If they did, I wouldn't be feeling worse after working my ass off with the cult promise that if I do this and do this, I'm going to feel better. I don't feel better. I feel worse. And I feel tired and worse. And I feel bitter and cynical and worse because I've been working my ass off and trying everything I can. Sex, food, things, marriage, not marriage, lying, telling the truth. I've been trying everything and it's not working, right? Because in a traumatically illiterate cult, the members of the cult don't know how to respond to trauma, don't respond to trauma, in many cases shame its symptoms and make it worse, and then blame it on the individual. They blame an intergenerational cultural pattern that's been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and they pretend it's all about you. If you weren't such a bad kid, if you weren't this, it would all be great. Bullshit. Bullshit. If I wasn't such a bad kid, you'd have still beaten me. You still wouldn't know what you're doing around trauma. You still wouldn't repair it. You'd still be frightened of your feelings, and I'd still be confused. But you want to blame one little kid for all this stupidity and just keep up with the mantra, be a better husband, show some consideration, be a better son, be a better this, do this. Go fuck yourself. I can do that for the next 1,000 years. It's not going to get trauma out of my body. And if you weren't so goddamn dumb, you would know that. And if you weren't so committed to blindness, you might acknowledge that you don't even want to know what you don't know, right? How about that, right? Then some of this shame might be given back where it belongs. I shouldn't be holding this. This is a cult problem. This is a cult design flaw. Let's start addressing the code. No, we can't do that. This is the way the world is. Yes, it is the way the world is, and it sucks. But this is the way it is. That's not a response, right? Let's turn it around. You be a better cult, and then my problems will be solved. No, you be a better cult member, but keep doing the stupid things that cults do, and then the cult's problems would be solved. Not sure about that. So these equations, they're given to kids silently with a big seal on them that says, if you talk about this, you will die, because very often that's the case. Not always physically. But kids are pretty perceptive. And grown-ups in a psychologically illiterate cult are pretty committed to not knowing what they don't know. Which means they've got to shut the kid up because the kid gets it. Once they learn language, they start telling the truth. Why are you so angry at Mom? Oh, I'm not angry at Mom, the adult lies. I'm not. Why do you hate me so much? Oh, I don't hate you. No, I don't hate you at all. Now go to your room. I'm busy hating and doing this stuff, but don't for a moment think that I'm angry or that you did anything wrong. Wretched kid, took all the attention. Right? So the kid's asked to go crazy. They're asked to go numb. But they're also clearly given the message, the truth is not welcome here. Yes, you do hate me, Dad. You're always glaring at me for this and that and the other. At least you could give the kid sanity, and then they could understand why they feel hated, right? Why they feel so small. It makes sense. You've got two giants that you depend on. Both of them hate you periodically, and then pretend that they don't hate you and don't let you talk about your feelings because then they would feel guilty that they hate you. It's kind of messed up. So how do you get, you've got to untangle the coal, all that dump crap all over what you know and what you see. You got to get that off you, and you got to face the fear of death in the process because that's why you let them dump it on you. You didn't want them to shout at you and hit you because you told the truth and they didn't want to hear it. Because it just reinforced their inadequacy, right? If you knew the truth and they knew that you knew, and they knew the truth, they would feel more inadequate in a cult that judges them for their feelings and their behavior, but does not teach them how to do it differently. That's an abusive cult. You're going to be judged for failure, and we're going to set you up for failure and wait around to judge you for failing. If you got a boss like that, you're doomed. But you've got a cult like that. The entire cult is saying you should be happy, you should be positive, you should be this, and then undermining you and hacking you down at every turn and misinforming and deluding you and putting huge weights on your back and saying, no, nothing's there. You wonder, why can't I move? No, nothing's there. God damn, what do you mean nothing's there? I can barely move after you put that weight on me. And I have to believe that nothing is there? This is nuts, right? I just felt 400 pounds come on my back. What do you mean nothing is there? No. I didn't put anything on your back. Just secretly judged you and shamed you and did this and acted as if this was true and believed that and did that and undermined you. And then I said, oh, how nice to see you, right? Because if I acknowledged all my rage, all my hatred, then you might question it. And then you might ask me, why are you always telling me not to hate and stuff when you're so filled with hatred? Why are you telling me that anger is bad when you've got so much of it? Why are you telling me to change what I feel when you don't change what you feel? And then the adult, the grown-up, the giant, would be forced to say, I don't know. I'm a hypocrite. I don't know what I'm doing. My parents don't know what they're doing. And so obviously I can't teach you what you're doing because I don't know. And I don't have an answer for any of it. And I feel terrible about that. So I'd like you to shut up and pretend that we have an answer so that I don't feel so terrible. How's that? Well, that's crazy, Mom. Yes, it is. It's absolutely crazy. I'm a crazy person in a crazy cult. Well, can't we do anything about it? What? I don't know what to do. Everyone's going to punish me if I start talking like this. Nobody wants to understand these things. Well, what do we do, Mom? We just behave crazily in a crazy cult, and maybe you'll figure it out one day. I haven't a clue. I haven't. And I don't know if I ever will, and it's so depressing. I want to go get a drink right now because, this is depressing. And please don't bring this subject up again because I don't know how to respond to it. I'll go away so I can be depressed and not feel too guilty about it because I'm losing it. And I have no idea how to figure this out. So unfortunately, you're dependent on a grown-up who doesn't know what they're doing. And so heaven help you. Okay, I'm having my drink now. I mean, that would take the load off, but it would bring up more anxiety. Like, Mom doesn't know what she's doing, and I'm dependent on her, right? So there's no way out of these types of things. Now, the question is, so here's a little riddle, right? So that's a riddle given to millions of children in the US in the last 30 years. That's a riddle. You've watched all the symptoms of it. You've watched all this. Maybe your friend got this riddle. Maybe you got this riddle. Maybe your brother got this riddle. It's a riddle. If you poke Mom too hard and just try and uncover the riddle and the rules of the riddle, she may collapse and certainly hate you for bringing up her inadequacy. If you don't, then you go blind and are part of the system and the riddle, and you're likely to repeat it and give it to your children. How do you get out of that, right? So you can approach this riddle, because going back, all circles begin out of the one. The one is refracted into distinctions, paradigms, beliefs. It's refracted into distinctions through the artifice of language. A delusion, the one always is one, but we're now seeing it through the lens of bits on the foundation of language. Now, those bits never fit together perfectly. They're never a perfect representation of the one. So there is innate friction. There is innate friction, there is innate suffering, there is innate waste as one refracts the one through the conscious mind into a system that takes this nice smooth wheel of the one and turns it into a bumpy wheel, as the circle becomes angular. And you drive through your life on that wheel and it bumps. Get up on the point, it goes down to the flat point, the next. It's a bumpy ride. Because we're interacting with reality, with ourselves through a system of words that are not perfectly symmetrical, that are not perfectly assembled to adequately represent the grace of the underlying reality. And the more it emphasizes one thing and shames the other, the more bumpy the ride. So and then within that, within that general cult dynamic, there are a series of patterns, cult patterns, for meeting needs, for responding to pain, for various things that are created by the system. The system creates the pain, and then the cult creates some acceptable channels with which to solve the pain or medicate the pain or hide the pain, like the Stoic, right? How you all doing today? Great, we're doing great. Okay, you get a reward because you lied. We know you're not doing great. We know your brother bullied you here. We know this happened there. That wasn't unfair. That, your other one tied your shoes together and you tripped and broke your nose. We know all that. But you read the lines. You read the lines because we don't know how to solve all that. Sibling rivalry, parent rivalry, jealousy, rage, stupidity, lie. We don't know how to solve that. We've never been able to solve that as a cult. And so what we've done is we've bribed children. We've taught them that good manners is to lie and say, "Thank you, sir. I'm feeling wonderful. Thank you for asking." And then we're bribing them not for telling the truth, but for reading the line. And so that means burying. Now you're rewarded for burying all the dynamic, and so it can't be worked on. But you've got to figure out what your pattern was in your family, which may be intergenerational, it may be this generational. You've got to figure out what the pattern is. Because it's in you, because every child makes a clone, a copy of the psychological hard drive of the family, of the system that they're in, and defaults to copying and replicating that pattern. That's what you're given. It's a curse, it's a blessing. It's what you're given. It's a clone. Now, you've got two ways out of this, like, let's take this pattern right here, right? Mom, let's say you're in the mother role of the pattern. Mom might read a book, "Every man feels like a hurt little kid inside. Every man needs to feel significance. Your job is to catch your husband doing something good for the family and reward him and praise him and make sure he feels special. And then he'll keep doing that. And you'll get a nicer husband." So she'll say, "Oh gosh, it's so tiring and stuff, but okay, let me try that. Okay, there's my cue. He did something good, so I don't want to really talk about this. I'm tired. I'd like to be honored for taking care of 2 kids while he does this and that and all the other. But no, I'm going to put all that aside. I'm going to iterate this pattern, and I'm going to say, oh, that's so wonderful. That's so wonderful, right? And then he's going to feel great and want to do more of that. Okay, so she's going to iterate the pattern that way. And let's say that dad iterates the pattern by learning to talk, for example, rather than tough men don't talk. They don't have feelings, right? He learns he's going to learn what the feelings are and maybe say something like, what I just said. I'm sorry this because of this and this and this. Dad's going to break, and so that's going to break the taboo. Now the kid is going to have that both as sanity but also as leverage against the parent, right? In a scarcity mentality, the child is going to be in pain sometimes. And their goal will be to leverage their parents' pain into reducing their own pain, right? In a scarcity environment, a symptom of incompetence to create superabundance, there will not be enough sometimes. And so all this data point is going to be then used by the adolescent or whatever in the child to try and poke at and get more. Like you're just doing that because you're a scared 6-year-old. Why don't I get my ice cream cone, right? So that could backfire, right? Because if that's too painful for the grown-up who is a scared 6-year-old, maybe he'll hit the kid more for bringing it up, for making them feel bad. Shut up again, right? You're not supposed to say that. I told you that. It's true. But if I'm at my wit's end, I'm going to hit you anyway. Don't talk about it, right? So then, but it can become a little bit more conscious. But, so dad, in the dad role, could talk about some of these things. Or the teenager might learn some psychology and try this and try that. The dad might also coach the person on what they're supposed to do. You're supposed to praise me. I want to be appreciated for that. I did this. You're eating it. I brought you a food. You're saying, you're sitting there eating it. I want you to tell me what a great dish it was. And that you appreciate that I took the time to give it to you. You're too bothered, it's too much trouble to you? Fine. I'm going to give the food to someone else who makes me feel special, right? Okay, I appreciate you for bringing the food. Right, now do it next time without me having to coach you every time, so I feel like I'm you're not just going through the motions. Make me feel important. I want to feel important. I don't know how, right? If you have any other ideas how I can be important, let me know, right? Oh, I don't have any ideas. Well, I feel very, very small. And so, or mom could tell the kids, Dad feels really, really small, and he feels much bigger when all of you say thank you because he brought something home or whatever. Okay, thank you, Daddy. And he feels bigger, right? And you have a better system, right? It's not getting at stopping the childhood abuse. It's not healing the trauma, but it's making progress, right? Because that would be really, really intelligent to stop abusing children. But we're not there yet, right? So, but maybe we can talk about what is the abuse and its nature, and why do children identify with the abuse, and why do traumatic memories not fade? This can become part of the family lexicon, so that when you abuse your children, they at least have language to understand the abuse. My memory isn't fading. I'm thinking of this over and over again. I feel stupid. I feel small. I feel stupid. I feel small. It's not fading. It's going on for years. Once you did this to me and did that, and you humiliated me in front of your friends. You didn't hit me. You just humiliated me. And I think about that. You gave me a social death. Your life was threatened physically. You threatened my life socially. You humiliated me. I don't feel like my identity, my pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being can survive after the way you talk to me in front of my friends. You have destroyed my social identity. I'm supposed to be cool and hip and all that. You made me look dumb and this. I don't know what to do. It's just ruined. I feel too embarrassed to face my friends. I think about it every day. Well, now you've got language, right? So you don't have to wait. You can tell your children, my parents shamed me and did this, and you've got language. And you can also have a conversation back and forth. You were making me feel small and helpless like a parent. Again, I told you this, I told you again, I told you again, and I just saw you with a candle in your bedroom, and I thought you're going to burn down my house, and I'm going to feel like a failure. Because I can't put another house over your head if you burn this down. So you're setting me up to fail and feel inadequate again. I could give a shit about you and your social image. You goddamn motherfucking bitch. Stop burning a candle in my house. All your friends, get out, right? Because you risked me feeling completely inadequate despite asking you 3 times. You see, Dad still needs to be able to provide a house, or he feels like a complete failure. And the only way he can provide a house is if people cooperate to not burn it down. He's not getting that support. And he could give a shit about the social image of his daughter in that moment, right? Right? All bets are off. If you make me feel this inadequate again, I will do anything to not feel this way. I will destroy you, right? Because there is a pain in dysfunctional cultures. There is a pain in each individual in a dysfunctional culture that is so intense, that is so painful, that every member of the cult will do anything imaginable not to feel it. It's that bad. And so we talk about this, like real, like this is, now we see the real you, right? So you, the witness, can look at me archetypally, whether it's your dad, your parents, me, yourself. You can say, now we see the real you. You're not nice. You're not kind. You're not fair. You just want everything your way, or you're going to kill us. That's the real you. Now we know who you really are, right? Now, this always coincides with the most painful, darkest aspect, right? And it's backwards, of course. Most things in a psychologically illiterate cult are backwards, right? That's the real wound, right? In a high pain cult, everyone has been touched by a pain that is so severe, it traumatized their identity, it threatened their reality, and they would do anything to avoid. It's worse than death. And many people will. They'll commit suicide to avoid that pain. Now, when people are confronted with that amount of pain, they will go through the full machinations of their family system, of all the different things that anyone ever did in their family or their cult to avoid that. Murder, blackmail, bribery, lies, denial, running away, intimidation, bullying, screaming, whining, right? What worked to get rid of that unimaginable pain? That's what people do, regardless of their role, whether they're a teacher, a minister, a parent. That pain comes up, and they look around desperately. What do I have to do to manage this pain? And sometimes it's hitting the other person, attacking whatever. This has happened twice in my relational life. I remember the first time it happened. My spouse, my partner at the time, had rage attacks where when she felt insecure, she would rage and blame. And she felt insecure if I did something really well and beautifully and if I was really talented and if people were complimenting me, she felt insecure that she would lose me. And she didn't like feeling insecure. Felt horrible to feel afraid of abandonment and all that. And she didn't like feeling it, and she didn't like looking at the feeling, and she didn't like responding to the feeling. And so she would fly into a rage about something. And in this case, she was chasing me around the house, shouting at the top of her lungs. And I went in the bathroom, and she just stood outside this tiny bathroom and shouted. And it became too much for me, right? I began to dissociate. I began to regress, to break down. I needed to get away from this overwhelming feeling. So I opened the door. I couldn't get out the window. I opened the door, and I wanted to get by her, but she was big and blocking the way. And without thinking, my hand here just tapped her on the solar plexus, and she fell backwards. And she stopped raging. And immediately the feeling passed. That terror that I needed to get away from was no longer there because she wasn't screaming anymore. So now I could be my, quote, normal self. I helped her up. She threatened to call the police if I did that again as a domestic violence thing. And I said, I'm not safe here. I'm leaving. You see, and so it's also interesting, like she was doing that out of insecurity about losing. And yet I realized that I didn't know what else to do with the blocked thing in that amount of panic, right? And I also knew that doesn't come up normally. I mean, that was the only time that had ever happened in my entire life until that point. And so I looked at it and thought, well, you've done it this time, so you're likely to do that again. And this is the only way that I know how to deal with that. And it worked. You stopped screaming. So I'm likely to do that again. But I'm not willing to go to jail or be given the cult's shame as an abusive partner because the cult has not given me anything else to do other than to leave, right? So now she's stigmatized as then this abusive partner. So now she feels that inadequacy and stuff because I left. And the insecurity because I left, which fuels the rage. So that's just what she does, is have rages from time to process the fear and hurt that she doesn't want to feel. So that's her system, right? And so my way out of that is to leave. I escaped, but I realized, when I went into the bathroom, there's sometimes you just can't, there's no escape, right? Because if there had been a door out of the bathroom, I'd have just gone out and left, and after she was done with her rages, she's fine after her rages. Like it blows through like a huge storm, and when the steam is boiled off, there's no more pressure, and just fine, right? She's good the next day, right? But I'm not, right? I'm wondering, when's that going to happen again, and why am I being punished for being admirable, right? That's terrifying. Like the more I accomplish, the more I'm going to be raged at, and then the more I defend myself, the more I'm going to be set up to be a villain. No. Other women don't rage at me like that, and so I don't. There, I did it once. I don't ever have to touch another woman. But that's really the coping mechanism, is to leave an unsafe environment that I don't know how to solve. Right? I don't know how to solve her rage. I don't know how to solve her hurt. I don't know how to solve her insecurity because she doesn't want to feel it. And she doesn't want to talk about it because then she would feel it. I don't know how to do that, right? And so I leave, right? And so the cult dissociates, it disintegrates as people meet these unsolvable problems and put distance. And pretty soon there's too much distance between too many people. You're not safe for this, you're not safe for that, you're not safe for this. There's just too much distance. We're each given a wound, we're each given a pattern, we're each given a pain by the cult, usually through the delivery system of our parents and teachers and peers, and usually the deepest wound is the primary caregiver because that's where the betrayal hurts the most. You are in a completely dependent relationship with a caregiver as a 2-year-old, as a 3-year-old. And so if they betray that dependency with usury, with lies, with neglect, with violence, with violation, a child is incapable of doing anything else other than believing that they deserve it. And so once you believe you deserve the pain that you were given, you have no way out. Because who you are is undeserving, and undeserving people deserve this pain, and you are undeserving. And so you deserve this pain, and there will be more of it because you deserve it. And if there aren't more people giving you that pain, we will find someone because you deserve that pain, and that's why you have it. And there's bound to be someone out there willing to abuse you and give you the pain that you deserve, and that's why you have it, right? And so that's the loop that childhood abuse gives to a child. Pain, shame, trauma is always the child's fault from the perspective of the child and is always internalized. And until the person transcends their childhood state, they will find people to abuse them in that way to make their belief system sane. Because it doesn't feel sane or safe to say, I am a fraud, I deserve to be abused, and I'm being recognized and I'm not being abused. That does not feel sane because it isn't sane. And you have two abilities to resolve insanity. You can say, no, I thought I deserved that because I was 2 years old and that facilitated a greasing of the relational system, right? People who abuse their children by definition are incapable of doing better than they are doing. People behave the way they are capable of behaving. And so, if you fight that as a child, as an infant, you can't win. If you internalize it and make peace with it and say, yep, I deserve to be unloved. I deserve to be hit. I deserve to be hated. I deserve to be blamed for all your problems. It's all my fault. The parent will say, good, I won't hit you as much. Now that you've got the message, now that you know it's all your fault, fine. I'll be a little bit nicer to you. I won't beat you quite as often. And maybe rather than me having to beat you every single time, maybe when I get angry, you can say, I'm so sorry, Mom. It's all my fault. I ruined your life. Then you'll feel better and won't beat me, right? Because I've already gotten the message, right? It's not Mom's fault. It's my fault, right? So I could change the message, but that's very upsetting. It's destabilizing the identity, right? Our ego always binds to an identity, a pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And I bound to the identity, the pattern of it's all my fault, and so I am abused, and I ruin people's lives, and it's all my fault. There's a pretty big change in identity to saying it's not my fault. I am a beautiful person. I don't deserve to be hit. And all those reasons I was hit are because I'm in a dysfunctional culture that doesn't know what it's doing, doesn't know how to raise its children, doesn't know how to protect a child, doesn't know how to screen for competent parents. It is a psychologically illiterate, highly incompetent cult, where anyone with a penis and a vagina can have a child regardless of the degree, the density of the abuse patterns in the lineage. Dad died as an alcoholic. Mom committed suicide on that side. The other side, they beat the children, traumatic abuse, incest and stuff went on for several generations. Oh, you've got a penis and a vagina. Wow. I'm sure you'll make an excellent parent for this child who will take all of your ignorance, cruelty, shame, and stupidity and blame themselves for it. No harm in that. It's been going on for thousands of years. Have a child, right? Right? So if you start saying, no, I don't deserve it, it's a traumatic event because there's so much chaos in the identity. I am my pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. It is my fault. I never succeed at anything. It's always my fault. How do you go from that to I succeed at anything I want to do and it's not my fault? And I feel great. And I look back at those memories and, that's a sad thing that many children go through, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the kids. How do you go from that and what does it mean to not be at fault? I don't know how to do that. I know how to blame myself. I don't know how to be proud. That's unknown. You see, and traumatized children are more frightened of the unknown than anyone else. Because the traumatized child expects to be re-traumatized, and trauma is the worst pain imaginable. And the main coping mechanism many people use is they avoid the unknown, which means they have to avoid change, which means they have to control themselves and other people so that things will not open up for them. Because then they're confronted with the unknown, and what the unknown means to an abused child is re-traumatization. I'll be vulnerable and helpless again. I'll be surprised again, and I'll be hit and hurt again and again. That's what the unknown means. And when you say, it's not my fault that I was abused, for the first time in my life, What does it feel to know that it's not my fault? It feels overwhelmingly vulnerable. I'm vulnerable to the unknown. I don't know how people will treat me. They might just keep blaming me. I don't know how to live with other people who don't know. I don't know how to do this. It's just easier to say it's all my fault. It's always been my fault, and it will be my fault until the day I die. And I will find people who will tell me it's all my fault. But changing that is just so overwhelmingly vulnerable, right? So that's difficult, right? But that's also how we can break apart the pattern, right? We can figure out the logistics of the pattern and slowly unravel it. Say, that's not my fault. That's not how parents are supposed to treat their children. It's a new pattern. Because it's not all my fault, I'm not going to stay with someone who's always blaming me for everything. That's not how you treat, a spouse. And because it's not all my fault, I'm not going to remember all of my mistakes 300 times a day to remind me why I'm such a bad person. I'm going to remember my successes, which are equally valid. I did graduate from high school. I did brush my teeth. I learned to drive a car. I've only had 3 accidents in 10,000 trips. Pretty good track record, right? Well over 99%. I did this right. I know how to speak the English language. There's all kinds of things I succeed at. It's not my fault. I'm a very successful person. 99% of the time, I succeeded at this. I moved my finger very successfully. I'm succeeding all the time. I'm breathing reliably. Right? Talking. I'm surrounded by success. I am a successful person. It's not all my fault. But where does that leave? Do people agree with you? Does it get, this fear of the unknown confronts us. So we can unravel it step by step. We can say, no. Just because you have dumb parents and you learned this inaccurate thing, and then you had a child and I believed you, doesn't mean it's true. You can just have that stupidity back. Right? You and your parents keep that stupidity. This is what the science tends to suggest. So this is the unraveling of shame and the energy mass of abuse rationally and at a cultural level. And this can take 10, 20 years for the simple reason. It's not that it would take more than a few hours in a highly competent culture. But when you are surrounded by people who have the same blind spots, who don't know what they're doing any more than you, and you don't know what you're doing because you have no one to learn from because you're in a psychologically illiterate cult where nobody knows what the most competent scientific method to respond to this or that is. And instead they've got their maps polluted with superstition, stupidity, shame, and ignorance. In a cult that doesn't want to admit that it's superstitious and so it pretends this is the way it is, right? It would be great if our parents just said, I'm really dumb. It's not personal. I've copied a really dumb pattern from really dumb people who copied it from their parents. And it's not working very well. 50% divorce, 70% loneliness, 20% depression, higher suicide rates than 99% of life's creatures, massive amounts of ecological destruction, pursuing things that advertisers promise will make us happy, but then they don't, but then we believe the advertisers again, and that didn't make us happy either. Learning things that have nothing to do with navigating a great life, refusing to teach competent skills in school that people need, like driving and running a business. We are a very, very dumb parent in a very, very dumb cult. And unfortunately, dumb people are too dumb to know that they're dumb. So I'm a little bit smarter than most because I know that I'm dumb. And if you know that I'm dumb too, then you'll have a leg up and you'll know why you're dumb, because you're going to copy and internalize a lot of what I'm saying. And then you're going to have to figure out how to be less dumb over the next 80 or 100 years. And you're still going to be pretty dumb, but hopefully you can be 30% or more less dumb than me. That'd be a good rate, and then you can give your stupidity to your children. See, because the trouble is, even though I'm dumb, and even though half of what I'm doing and saying and thinking and feeling is absolute nonsense, would never hold up in any kind of a scientific analysis that this is the best path to well-being. No. Even though I'm dumb, because I'm dumb, I don't have anything else to offer you. So copying the cult that you're in is your best chance to survive, as long as you know that it doesn't know what it's doing in any number of areas, and you're going to have to figure that out on your own, because if it knew what it was doing, then it wouldn't be messing you up in all these ways, right? There wouldn't be all this hypocrisy and lies and abuse and secrets and corruption and all that stuff, because it would actually know what it's doing, right? And then if it knew what it was wrong, it would fix it, but it doesn't, right? That's your job. And then, you don't have any divine masters waiting to help you. And if you do, the cult of materialism is going to pretend that they don't exist so that you don't have access to all that wisdom. Because we're really dumb and we've cut it off, right? We deny divine support because we're dumb, and we've given you that stupidity, and we get angry at you if you talk about having unseen friends or things like that. Because that's not what we do in this cult, because we're dumb, right? So you're going to have to figure all that out. Now, this is a great gift to a teenager, to explain all this. But, to what end? To try and iterate towards a little bit more intelligence. So that's a way kind of through the rationality, and you can read books and study this and look at language and write and do diaries and try and get out that way. And, that can take 10, 20, 30 years to crawl out from the dung pile that was dumped on you and actually see things with a little bit of clarity, to get out of the dung, right? Because you have all that manure dumped on you and you're smelly and dirty. You look out, it's like, where is it? What do I do? Where do I go? You can't see. You got to get out of the dung. So you got to get out of all of these piles of shame and terror and trauma that have been given to you. And then you can see, right? And then you can see, once you're out of the pile, you can see how not to go in the pile again. But when you're in the pile, you can't see at all, so you can't get out of the pile, right? It helps to have a friend, an intuition, something that's saying a little bit more light and stuff out here. It's helpful.